Good morning. Happy Friday. I hope you're all well. It's really nice to be able to hop on here and connect with you all and spread a little bit of the give, get, go experience, I suppose. On Tuesday, we did our first session around digital detoxing. And I'm going to carry on with that theme today. So for those of you who haven't perhaps done Give, Get, Go or aren't used to the way that Transforming Lives do things, we're really interested in helping people to live a more balanced life. And we do that through lots of different things. But primarily what we're trying to do is just give everybody really simple and manageable things to do or to try that's going to help them to maintain a nice balance in terms of their well-being. So, digital detoxing is all about finding a way to kind of manage your online activity. So we live, don't we, in a world where we are constantly bombarded with messages, whether that's on our phones, on our laptops, on our tablets, and then we've got all of the other external input as well from the television, the radio, the newspapers, the magazines. So, it's not surprising that from time to time we get that sense of feeling overwhelmed. So one of the things that you can try to do is learn a little bit more about how to filter out some of that information so that you're minimising the risk of it overwhelming you and making you feel bad. We talked on Tuesday about some of the emotions that come with feeling overwhelmed from particularly on the internet, and it's often feelings of not being good enough. So if you've got people on your Facebook friends list or if you follow celebrities on Instagram, it can leave you feeling really quite inadequate and feeling like your life isn't good enough. You don't look how you ought to look. You're not thin enough. You're not healthy enough. You're not rich enough. It's just incredibly difficult, I think, to try and get a hold of that, because it can be quite interesting to follow other people, and I follow lots of people, particularly on Instagram, and some of it's quite inspiring. If you're following someone, particularly maybe somebody who's in the public eye, and they might live in a lovely house, and in some ways that can be quite inspiring. It can give you something to aim towards. But if you're looking at these things and they're making you feel like your life isn't good enough or you're not good enough, then that's really not very good for you at all. So today, what I'm going to try to do is talk about managing your online activity whilst in this current coronavirus crazy place that we're all in at the moment, because it's particularly difficult at the moment to be able to separate fact from fiction. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Now, I don't know about you, but certainly for me in the past couple of weeks, I have been inundated with messages, with links, with videos, with all sorts, where people have thought, I think, that they were being helpful and kind, and even in some cases passing on information that could be quite critical. So if that's familiar to you, if that sounds like how it's been for you as well, let's just take a little minute to talk about that. So every time there is a big event, whether that's the general election or Brexit or any of these sorts of big national events where everybody's implicated in some way or another, often what comes with that is this kind of massive wave of information on the internet, memes and videos, and so much that is incredibly difficult to pick out what's true and what's not true. So I want to talk about fake news for a little minute. Again, because of the way that Facebook is moderated, now it would appear that they've got more of a handle on controlling the quality, particularly of news on Facebook. But some of it still gets through, and people share things and they don't actually know how authentic or how true that particular piece of information is. So what I think would be helpful to do, and I do it now, is before I click on something, before I open something, I ask myself whether I trust the source. So just be mindful that people often mean well and will share things that they think might be helpful, but it doesn't mean that they're true. Now, I can give you an example from this week where I've had more than once this same link or a piece of information, and it was all about coronavirus and how you can stop yourself from getting it by I think it was saying, like, if you make sure that you drink lots and lots of hot drinks, so lots of tea, lots of coffee, soup, things like that, because it would sort of drown out the virus and then get it into your stomach, where the stomach acid would eat it and attack it, and then it would be flushed out your system. Now, I must have been sent that particular piece 10 times easily. So that means that at least 10 people in my list thought that that was true and was worthwhile passing on. Now, we don't know that that's true. Had that information come straight from the World Health Organization or from the NHS or from the government, then I would be more inclined, I think, to listen and to take heed on the information and the advice. But it didn't. I think it said it was coming from coronavirus survivors from Wuhan. So, yeah. I mean, I drink a lot of tea anyway. It wouldn't be a massive change for me if I had a little bit more tea in a day. But imagine if that information was telling you to do something that you didn't normally do. It could be damaging. It could be risky. So just take a second before you open something, before you pass something on, and have a real honest conversation with yourself about whether you trust the source and whether by passing it on, what you're actually doing is potentially putting somebody else at risk or giving them an increased sense of anxiety. The next thing I wanted to have a little chat with was about how often you check the news. So on my phone, I have the BBC News app, and I check that probably twice a day. I do get notifications from the BBC, so if something big and momentous has happened in the day, it will it will come up on my phone, and I'll know about it. So I don't really need to be checking the news every sort of half an hour or whatever, because actually if something big is happening or if something big has happened, they will tell me anyway, because it will come through as a news flash, if you like. So just at the moment, while things are the way that they are, and we're all in this heightened sense of it is a crisis. I mean, I think we can manage that crisis, certainly on an individual level, a bit. But while we're in this very, very pronounced period of news, just try if you can and ration that a little bit, so that you haven't constantly got the radio on in the background, so that you haven't got the telly on all the time, and you're not, obsessively or neurotically checking the news every few minutes, because it can become quite overwhelming, and that's not helpful. What all of us have got a responsibility to do for ourselves and for our families right now is to try and keep a balance. You can only really look after the people that you're responsible for if you're able to look after yourself first. And that includes really managing your well-being. So I would really recommend thinking about how open you are at the moment to that constant flow coming in of news. Because let's face it, at the moment, the news is quite scary. And to have that being continuously coming at you all day long, at some point you're going to get to a point where you feel overwhelmed by it. And we'd really like for you to find ways where you don't feel overwhelmed. So think about maybe allocating a time in the day, maybe lunchtime, where you say, right, well, I'll put the radio on at lunchtime, or I'll quickly check the news, and then maybe do the same after your dinner or before your dinner. I know that the Prime Minister is daily addressing the nation through a news conference, and that's helpful to listen to, so that you know what's going on, and particularly with things like finances, what measures are being put in place to help people to cope. So that stuff is definitely useful, but think about maybe minimising your exposure to it all day long. That leads me into thinking about just how we can manage our well-being at the moment. The government advice at the moment, particularly whilst they've restricted our movements and our activities, what they've said is that all of us are to stay at home as much as possible, and we can only go out to pick up essential food and medical items, and we can go out and exercise once a day. So how can you manage your well-being while you're stuck in the house all day? One of the ways of doing that is watching the Digital Detox Facebook Live that we broadcast on Tuesday of this week. It's right there on our Facebook page, and there's some really helpful tips in there about just being a bit more mindful of your activity, particularly with social media at the moment. So I'm not going to go back over that again, because I think it's all there, and you're very welcome to pick that up and watch it whenever you feel like it. But certainly now, with that information in mind, what else can you be doing to stay fit and well, both mentally and physically, whilst we're particularly in this situation where we're all more or less in a lockdown, and we're not to go out apart from to exercise? So what I've been doing, I'm quite active anyway, so I was really relieved when the Prime Minister said that we could still go out and exercise, and I am doing that pretty much every day. So even if that's not something that you perhaps did before, have a think about doing it now, because the weather's lovely. Thankfully, this is all kind of kicked off as the season is changing and it's much warmer outside. The sunshine is a real tonic, and it's good for you. So even if you only go out for a 15-minute power walk around the block, um, do I would really, really recommend that. Not only is it good for you physically, but it's very, very good for your mental health as well. So now might be the time to get your trainers out the wardrobe, dig out a pair of leggings or jogging bottoms or whatever. It doesn't matter, as long as you've got comfy shoes on. It doesn't matter what you wear really. But get out into the fresh air, even if it's only for 10 or 15 minutes. You'll really feel the benefit of it. If you've got a bike, and I do have a bike, maybe have a little cycle and get your exercise that way. The roads are lovely and quiet at the moment. There's hardly any traffic on the roads. So if you're a little bit nervous, then maybe try it at the moment, because it's a lovely way of keeping fit. You get your fresh air, you get your exercise, and it's just a lovely way of getting out and about. So exercise, we're being told we can still do that as long as you're only exercising by yourself or with no more than 2 people from the same household. So if you want to go for a walk with your partner or your kid or kids, that's okay. When you are out exercising, please be courteous to anybody that you happen to kind of come across on your walk, and just make room. You know, we're being told to socially distance at the moment and keep 2 meters apart. So just make sure you do that. Don't make anybody feel like the pavement is crowded. Just step right out their way, give them a little smile so that they know that, you know, you're thinking of them. And then, you know, you can get on your way. I also think that now is not the time to be just eating junk. You might feel like eating junk because of how scary life is at the moment, and comfort eating is a big thing. But if you can carry on eating well, then your body and your brain will thank you for it. So next time you go shopping or you get your shopping delivery, just think about things like, is the fruit bowl full? And reach for, you know, a banana or a tangerine rather than for a Kit Kat. I'm being a big fat hypocrite here because I had Marmite on toast for my breakfast and a couple of squares of Cadbury's Dairy Milk, which was a Mother's Day present. But I'm not having it all day. So, you know, a little treat's fine, and a little bit of what you fancy is fine. It really, really is. But moderate your food, and just be a bit more, I suppose, respectful of your body. Especially at the moment, if you're eating junky food, it will make you feel, and if you're already feeling mentally with worry or, you know, fretting and maybe not sleeping very well, then not eating well is just going to exacerbate that. So yeah, fill up your fruit bowl if you can, get a few veggies in, and eat well. We all should be looking after ourselves at the moment and doing our best to kind of not let it all go. Sleep. I'm finding I'm going to sleep much later than I would normally, because my routine has changed a little bit. So I wanted to just touch on that. If you would normally be out all day and now you're not, that is, of course, going to mess up your routine. So a really positive thing to do whilst you are at home is to try and maintain some semblance of normal life. And normal life isn't sitting on the couch all day. Normal life isn't like that. You know, you have places to go and you have to meet with people. And you have to do stuff at particular times. You know, some of you will be used to having to be at the school at like 3 o'clock, and that routine, those points in your day, keep you on track, and they're good for you. They give you a purpose and they give you a sense of structure, all of which is massively important when it comes to managing your well-being. So try and see if you can come up with a routine that helps you to structure your day, even though we are on lockdown and we can't live as we were living before. So that might mean setting an alarm still in the morning, you know, not just waking up when you wake up. Set your alarm, get up, you know, have your bath or have your shower, whatever you would normally do. If you're somebody who would normally put your face on, or, you know, whatever, or iron a shirt, still do those things. I'm not suggesting that you put on, you know, a full flipping suit every day, but certainly try if you can and feel like your normal self, because we need that. We need that as humans, is to not feel like everything has changed beyond all recognition. So getting up, setting an alarm, having your shower, doing whatever you do to get ready, have your breakfast at the normal time, and just try if you can and just give yourself some sort of structure to your day. If you decide that you're going to do exercise, set that time, and have that every day, because it would be much more likely to stick as a habit if you do it at the same time every day. And that's what habits are all about. It's just about repetition of the same thing over and over. Sorry, bear with me just a second. It's just repetition. So there is a theory that says to establish a new habit, you need to do things 21 times before your brain accepts that that is the new way of doing things, and that's just what you do. So habit is all about repetition. And to bring a new habit in, what you need to do is to take that new thing, and for the first few times, it will be effortful. So, you know, don't expect to just after 2 or 3 times for you to naturally be like, oh, I do this now, this is just who I am. It's going to take a couple of weeks before that really gets fixed as a new habit. So try that. Decide to yourself, right, well, my exercise slot is going to be, I don't know, at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or it's going to be after tea, or whenever is right for you. Try that and see whether that because what could be really amazing as a kind of offshoot or a byproduct of this time is that if you come out the end of it feeling fitter and healthier, and that you've managed to bring some new healthy habits into your life that you want to carry on with. I'm going to be trying a new thing. So I've decided that I'm going to turn my phone off for an hour in the middle of the day and have a break from my phone. Because I'm working, my phone is on all. In fact, I've got 2 phones, because I've got my personal phone and I've got my work phone. So I'm going to be turning my personal phone off for an hour a day, just to give me a break from things like WhatsApp, Facebook messages, all of those things that pop in. So that might be something to try, just to give your brain a little bit of a break. One of the things that I wanted to talk about on Tuesday, but ran out of time, was what's known as the no stop cue. So on your phone, when you go on a platform like Facebook or Instagram, what happens is that you're scrolling through, and you're scrolling and you're scrolling, and there is nothing that actually prompts you to stop. And that's done very, very deliberately. So if you think about when you read a book, you will stop reading usually when you get to the end of a chapter. Or unless you're like me, if I read in bed, I can stop reading halfway through a page because it sends me to sleep. But you will have a stop cue. The stop cue will be the end of the chapter, the end of a page, or even maybe the end of the book. But there are definite points within a book where you would naturally stop reading. The same if you picked up a magazine. You might read it for a bit, and then when you get to the end of a particular article, you'll put the magazine down, and then you might pick it up again later. The newspapers are the same thing. You'll read a column or you'll read a page. Facebook and Instagram don't have that. They want you online for as long as possible, scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, because that's where they get their revenue from, because you're being exposed through all of that scrolling to adverts, and that's how they make their money. So just bear that in mind, people, because if no one's going to tell you to stop, then you can very quickly find yourself kind of falling down that rabbit hole of Facebook and Instagram. And before you know where you are, you've been on it an hour or longer, an hour and a half. It's so easy. So the digital detoxing, learning to manage your online activity, a lot of it stems from that, because no one's going to go, think you've had enough now, think you should stop, I think you should feed your children, or I think you should go for a walk. It's not going to do that. So just bear it in mind. I definitely don't want to be telling anybody what to do. These are just ideas, and some of them will feel right for you and some of them won't, and that's okay. But if you do find yourself sometimes feeling a bit uneasy or uncomfortable with the amount of time that you're spending on those sorts of apps, then remember that they're designed that way. They actually use the same principles of psychology as the slot machines. You know, like in Vegas, when you see those lines and lines of people just like zombies putting coin after coin after coin after coin, because they're never cued to stop. So yeah, really keep an eye on that one. I'm gonna finish off now with just a little message to you all, and this is how I've decided that I personally am going to try and get through the next few months. I'm going to use the 1 day at a time principle. Principle's a bit posh. It's not a principle. It's just a mindset. And I've shared this with lots of you through Give, Get, Go, I do have a tendency to worry. I think naturally I am quite an anxious person. That's kind of my general way of being, and I've become pretty good at managing it over the years so that it doesn't completely take over. But times like this are worrying for everybody, whether you have an underlying anxiety problem or anything like that. So this is worrying for everyone. There would be something wrong if you weren't feeling concerned and anxious about the way that the world is at the moment. But we're all doing our very, very best to not let it overwhelm us, to get through to the other side, to listen to what the government asks us to do, to help ourselves and to preserve our amazing NHS. And the best way we can do that is just by taking it 1 day at a time. So try and not think about the future too much and worry about what's coming, because we don't know. And try and not fret too much about the past, because that's gone. So, I've personally worried a little bit because of things that maybe places that I went to, even in the last couple of weeks, where I've looked back and thought, oh, I wish I hadn't gone there, or I wish I hadn't done that. But, hindsight is a wonderful thing. We didn't know that we were going to be here where we are now. So instead of worrying about the future and what might be coming, and worrying about the past and what you could have done differently, just think about today. Just today. And getting through today as happily and as worry-free as you possibly can. And that works for me. It feels manageable for me. So try that one day at a time. And remember what I said on Tuesday. Don't be bullied by your phone. You're in charge. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope you're all well. Remember that we're all still here. If you need anything, if you want to chat, if you're worried, just drop us a line and one of us will be in touch and we can pick that up. So you have a lovely day. Get out into the sunshine if you can and take care. Bye for now.